Hey guys, it's Surreal here, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile on standard ezel post Tri-3 meta. So this is my ezel list for standard, and I will be going into the matchups against the Tri-3 decks and the other Force clans later in the video, so probably after I'm done explaining the deck. So I'm really excited for that. This deck actually isn't like terrible rogue. You can, if piloted right, it can just like beat them, like just beat the meta decks. It can just win. So it's a pretty good deck. I like it a lot. And I'm just going to get right into it. So starting Vanguard is Kirf. I don't need to get into this. It's Kirf. You're playing ezel, you have to play Kirf. Moving on, I play 4 Blondes. Blonde ezel is really important because of the superior ride. Being able to superior ride to grade 3 before your opponent is great. And on top of that, because you're playing both Bowman's and Wonder ezel in this deck, having the Blonde ezel from hand superior ride just in general is even more valuable because this deck wants to turbo into Platina. Okay? Platina ezel is the engine of the deck. It's what makes the deck the deck. Without Platina ezel, this deck would be kind of garbage. But with Platina ezel, it's actually viable, in my opinion. So, that being said, being able to turbo into Platina and get the double superior ride, so then that way on your next grade 3 turn, so your following turn after your initial grade 3 turn, you can ride into Platina and have Platina's full skill live, is super important. There have been games where it's like, oh, I don't have this in my hand, but I have Wonder ezel and this in my hand, so I'm just going to ride Wonder ezel, call the thing Howl, yeah, call the Howl, sack the Howl, superior ride, okay, that's 1 XL circle. Then I'm going to call the Bowman's, I'm going to use his skill to call the Gareth, and then I'm going to Soul Blast 1 and superior ride again. And now I'm literally prepared for my next turn for Platina ezel. It's pretty awesome. And then, like, if you, like, top deck into this randomly, you can get, like, triple XL. It's actually really gross. It's pretty awesome, though. So having that is really, really tight. So you want to play 4. Then you want to play 4 Raven-haired ezels. Yeah, 4 of these things. Because, again, he turbos into Platina while giving you Twin Drive. On top of that, if your opponents give you more than 1 damage, and you're just, like, superior ride, you can hit them with, like, 2 crit. 90% of the time, they're not going to guard it because it's, like, typically 35 to crit with an AK boost. And you're not playing crits, so they're not worried about getting randomly critted to like 5 damage, which is pretty great. So they're just going to take it, and they're just going to take an auto 2 damage. It's pretty awesome. Also, like, in certain matchups, being able, like, after, like, this turn where you, like, superior ride and stuff, because you're always going to keep this in your soul as much as possible. If you don't have the second, like, Platina ezel in your hand to re-ride, after you like pelinore, at least you have like a better option than just like a blonde or staying on pelinore, because this actually provides pressure, so it's tight. Anyways, for Platina ezel, big boy Platina, it's literally the engine of the deck. Without Platina ezel, like I said, the deck wouldn't be the deck. So Platina ezel, what his skill is, if you don't know it, is you counterblast 1, and your first drive check is changed to look at top 2, call 1, and put the other one in the trigger zone. Then, if you have 2 or more grade 3s in your soul, you change all your drive checks to that skill until the end of the turn. Why is this important? Number 1, Platina ezel generates you board while looking at more cards, extracting more cards from the deck, and increasing your chances of hitting triggers. That's really important because the deck generates numbers through front triggers. That's how the deck gets a lot of pressure. It generates its numbers through its front triggers, because front triggers give 10k to the entire front row. You like double front, that's plus 20k to the front row. Your rear guards are going to be hitting for big numbers. That's how the deck generates numbers. That's really important. On top of that, you're always going to get a consistent 2 units out on board. So even if your opponent's like, oh, I'm just going to attack the rear guards, you're going to get those rear guards back. You're going to get at least 2 rear guards back, meaning you also don't have to commit a lot from hand. And one thing that was ezel's weakness, especially at the time when it was like super high roll XL1 Raven, was that it had very minimal hand and it didn't have a lot of call power, which sucked. This gives you call power and lets you maintain a hand size because you don't always have to drop your hand to keep facilitating board. If you're playing against Vanquisher, you're still going to get 2 units out from his skill, so you can still save cards in your hand, so you don't always have to like constantly commit, which is really, really, really good. In my opinion, that is. So, having that with the power of Pelinore, which is a wick combo, it's just going to put a lot more pressure on your opponent. and it makes this just a lot more valuable, which is why you want 4. You want to see this. You never not want to see this. There have been times where, at the time when I only owned like my 3 SVRs, I would struggle because I didn't have the 4th Platina ezel. So drawing into the Platina ezel was a little bit tougher. Being able to rewrite again into the Platina ezel was tough because I only owned 3. So having the 4th copy there for maximum consistency is just really valuable in my opinion. So that's why you want the 4. And then the 3 pelinore. So pelinore is pretty cool. Pelinore skill is at the end of the battle that your rearguard attacked hits a vanguard. If your opponent's at grade 3 or higher, you can counter +1, so +3, superior ride him a stand and -1 drive. So the reason why that skill is really good is because you're going to be on Platina. You're going to swing. You're going to use Platina skill. You're going to call some deeds out. You might get a front trigger, who knows, you know? And then you're going to attack with your rear guards. And if the other one of those hit, you get an additional vanguard attack. And because you're playing XL2, you're going to ride. You're going to net even with the ride from hand because the XL2 will just draw you a card so you don't lose out a card. And then you're going to plus again 1 to your hand, maybe 2 depending if you had a draw trigger. And you're going to get an extra unit out for another attack. That's pretty cool. That's like triple drive in standard. This is like Spear X Platina. It's like pretty sick, wouldn't you think? Because this is pretty dope. And on top of that, because this is on hit, it's going to put a lot of pressure on your opponent. Like, every time I would test this out, a lot of people would just be like, guard, 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 guard. And I'm like, cool, less cards in hand for next turn. Because they're really afraid that I'm just going to Superior Red Pelinore! Woo! Also, do note that this has also saved me a lot of games. There have been times where my opponent has had a lot of momentum. And because Platina, again, manipulates drive checks, you're also increasing the chances of you hitting heal triggers, which is pretty tight, or draw triggers, which again, it's pretty tight. And I've been able to heal out of really bad situations because of this and this. Because they let this hit, and I'll be like, okay, what's my next trigger? Oh, it's a heal trigger? Okay, next turn, I can survive now. I know I can. And then I can fight back again by rewriting Platina. It's pretty awesome. Also, his second skill, which is just at the end of the battle that your rearguard attack the vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and bounce it back to your hand. If you have the counterblast for it, it's pretty cool because there are times where you're going to see double trigger on top of your deck. So you're going to call a trigger and drive trigger. That's normal. It happens in this deck. So if that trigger's still standing and still has power and you swing, and they're like, guard, okay, you just get a trigger back to your hand. So that's easily 15k 20 PG to your hand. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's the grade 3s. The grade 2s, they're very simple. I think this is the best way to play the grade 2 lineup. You're only playing 8 because you're playing like 15 grade 3s. Because you're playing 4, 8, 12. Yeah, you're playing 15 grade 3s. So for Wonder Ezel and for Bowman's, Wonder Ezel just sacks Howl's Superior Ride into Blonde with -1 drive. This calls out Garrus so then you can Blonde Ezel Superior Ride. It's pretty cool. I think this is the most effective way to build the deck because, again, you want to be able to Superior Ride as much as possible. Especially in the Force matchup, you really want to be on grade 3 before your opponent. So, like, against decks like Alt Mile, they can't, like, hard rush you, ride into Alt Mile, and just capitalize on that, which is really annoying. And this way, it's, like, really just, like, okay, like, you're playing at, like, you're having a better time. That's what I mean. Yeah, you have a better time. And it's honestly solid. Also, his skill to just call cards from hand goes great in the battle phase because you can chain out attacks. It's pretty tight. So that's really it about the grade 2s. You really just want a Superior Ride. There's not much else. You do have a few options though. If you want to not just play like Turbo Superior Ride, which I personally think is the best way to play it, you can either cut this and play Langley, and Langley just stops intercepts for the turn for your opponent, so it hard counters Alt Mile. Or you could play Aiden, which just stays on the board and has immunity till like the end of your opponent's next turn. So it goes your turn, then your opponent's turn, and then they end, and then Aiden can like die and be targeted by effects. So he's really good against the Vanquisher matchup. But I think this is the most effective way because this also makes Dindrain live from your hand, which is pretty valuable because sometimes you need the counter charge. This always value. That's like always value. So you want to play this. I think this is the best way to play it. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comment section below. Onwards to grade 1s, again, it's very simple. for Howl. Before I get into this, if you've noticed these cards are Japanese, I just got really lazy and I didn't want to pull out my English ones. So you guys get to see my proxies from Japan. It's pretty cool. Anyways, so for Howl, he gives you soul, he extends attacks. More importantly, he sack fodder for Wonder Ezel Superior Ride. That's about it. For Dindrain, Dindrain just gives you resources back, also hand power. You can attack with Blonde Ezel, call it Soul Plus 1, draw a card, dig for your pieces. It's pretty cool. And then, like, to Gareth. Gareth's only here for Bowman's for the Superior Ride. It's like the only reason you play Gareth. That's about it. And also, you only really want to play 2 because it's a safety thing in case you ride it, and at the same time you're not playing like 3 or 4, so it just gives you more room. That's really about it. But you don't want to play 1 because if you damage check it or have to ride it, you can't Superior Ride. So you want to play 2. And just congratulations. Why wouldn't you? And then trigger lineup is like, it's pretty simple for Mark for drop PGs. Drop PGs are always good. 8 front, the best fronts in my opinion, because this is what makes your numbers in your deck. Like, yeah, at times it feels bad if you don't have like a full board, you check a front trigger, or like your turn 1, you're going second, you swing, and they're like no guard, and you hit a front trigger. Yeah, it feels bad, but it happens. The main important thing is that you're playing the front trigger so you get your numbers. The numbers are super important because that's how the deck actually pressures your opponent and can hit hard. Without the front triggers, this deck is garbage, in my opinion. And then for heal triggers, because living is pretty awesome. So yeah, that's like the deck. Now I'm going to go into matchups. So for my testing, I have the least experience with Revan. So I can't say too much about Revan. So I'm not going to go into Revan. I would just assume that it's like hard because Revan has a butt ton of numbers, butt ton of attacks as well. And the Vanguard gets triple drive and a crit, as well as 15k. So I think Revan will be a bit tough, but you have Platina, Pelinore. So I think the matchup comes down to who hits harder. That's just me though. I don't know. I haven't really tested too much against Revan, so I can't go into Revan. Against Vanquisher, on the other hand, I can go into. So Vanquisher is one of the best decks in the format right now in Standard. Vanquisher is pretty cool. Vanquisher has the front row control. It has extra draw power with Zuitan and the Dragoon. Mighty Bolt, not Mighty Bolt, Jaggy Shot. Jaggy Shot. It has consistency with Mighty Bolt. Overall, it's a very solid deck. Has a lot of chain attacking. Has power. It's a very solid deck. This deck beats it because your Gold Paladin, you're gonna usually have like a full front row. On top of that, you have the Superior Ride. So you have the speed to get to grade 3 before your opponent, meaning you have 2 turns before they get to grade 3 if you go first and you hit the Superior Ride. That's perfect because if they give you the 1 damage, you either double Superior Ride with Raven or Blonde, and the next turn you ride Platina, and you just go boom. And even if they get rid of your front row, the nice thing about this deck is that, again, like I said earlier, Platina Ezel gives you 2 units back. So it'll always give you 2 units in the front row again. So if you're able to call, like, let's say you have 3 Excel circles, okay? You got 3 Excel circles. You don't have to fill those 2. You can only, you only really need to fill, like, the 1 here, and then your other 2 rear guard circles in the front row, and then you're going to have a full front row again. So that's, like, really cool because you get to conserve hand. And another thing, too, another really nice thing about this deck is that if your opponent does hit a defensive trigger and shuts down your turn, you can just go and attack their rear guards and just go, okay, I'm going to attack your rear guard. Like, when I tested against Vanquisher, they hit a defensive trigger, and then they hit another defensive trigger. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to attack your Choho because you only have 2 of those in the deck. And it's pretty great to get rid of important pieces on their board. And because then they have to commit more, and they lose more cards out of their hand. So even with Zuitan and Jaggy Shot, if they're not able to empty out your front row, which I think it's a lot tougher for Vanquisher to empty out the front row just because of the card pool. I could be wrong. You can tell me I'm wrong, Vanquisher mains. If you disagree with me, by all means, disagree in the comment section below. But this deck can just pew it away. So Vanquisher, I'd say it's a 60-40, maybe 70 in the Vanquisher and 30% here, because it's just very dependent on how you play this. Playing the deck is a lot different too, this deck, because it's not like where you just drop your hand and you go in. Like, sometimes it's drop your hand, go in, but other times it's not, because this deck can play a slower game. So just keep that in mind. The rogue matchup that beats this deck is Angel Feather. Angel Feather just, like, absolutely beats this deck. I don't get why, but Angel Feather's just always been that, like, Protect clan that just beats Gold Paladin. I don't get it. It does. It can just outlast Gold Paladin. So just keep in mind, Angel Feather's, like, a really tough matchup. Going into the Force Clans, Alt Mile. Alt Mile is the one I can go the most in depth with, because I also played Alt Mile for a bit. So Alt Mile's weaknesses, as Seiji's mentioned, the guy who runs G Station, are being rushed, getting too much counterblast, or getting resource starved, being peace reliant, etc. The list goes on. This deck also gets to grade 3 before them. 90% of the time you will be on grade 3 before them. And that means that they can't really capitalize on their big numbers. Because you're on grade 3, you're at a higher body, you get Twin Drive, you have more cards in your hand, it's easier for you to actually survive. They're like 40k lines. When you're on grade 2, it's really hard to survive that, because you're on grade 2, your hand isn't that built yet, and you're on a lower body. But because you're going to be on grade 3, you're at a 12k ass, and you're going to be bigger. So you can guard their attacks. And on top of that, you're going to, hopefully, if you go first, you've already used Platinum Ezel, so you already have like some sort of big shields in your hand because of the drive check manipulation. So it's not terrible. On top of that, because, again, of Platinum Ezel, you have that and this. Altmile kind of just loses because you can resource starve Altmile, and they're not going to really be able to generate board without leave a row. Or you rush the butt out of them, and then you drop this during the battle phase because they're like out of shield. And they always have to guard early with Violinist too. That's another thing. If they take damage before they use Violinist, they lose out on 3 10k shields. Because Violinist gets intercept from the back row if they don't have face-up counterblast. So another thing that you can do is you can definitely just bait out their board and then just end turn, and they don't have a board. So you've essentially board wiped them. Because they're guarding, because they're like, oh, I don't want them to hit with this thing. Because they're going to get another Vanguard attack and bigger lumbers, and they're just going to overwhelm me. So you can pretty much bait out the use the Pelinore as a way to pressure and board wipe them, and then you can just like end turn. And then like they just lose because they're like, I don't have like a board. What do I do? I barely have a board. And you're just like, got him. Yeah, and it's great. And they don't board control as well, so you can play super conservative and have like a butt ton of cards in your hand. It's actually pretty tight. Jet is, I think Jet is the hardest matchup from the Tri-3 clans, and Altmile should be the easiest, in my opinion, from my testing at least. I could be wrong. Nico, if you're watching this, you can definitely tell me I'm wrong, but this is just from my experience. Jet's really tough because it gets power and it gets multiple force in the same turn. If it's force 2, they can play damage start game and resource control because of next stage, which is really annoying. But because of you just need to be on Platina. You want to go first in that matchup. You have the drive check manipulation, so that should give you some sort of an edge. But you also like want to early game aggro them. So if you could, even if you go first and you just have like 2 dudes in the front row, you just go Gareth 8 Vanguard. Are they gonna guard it? No? Okay, perfect. Because you want the Platina. Sorry, because you want the pressure for the Platina, and you want them to be at higher damage so that they can't just shut down your turn with 1 defensive trigger. Because Force Clans can do that. Like, even if you hit a front trigger, they hit a defensive trigger because they're on a 13k body, that's 1k more than what your lines usually hit unless they're on XL circles. That can pretty much shut down your turn. So just keep that in mind. Asha, I'm pretty sure the Asha matchup goes like this. You Superior Ride, you call a bunch of dudes with Platina, you're using Platina, they hit a defensive trigger, you just attack their Fairy token, and you want to stay at low damage early so then you can eat their Vanguard attacks, because their Vanguard attacks are going to get really big. Same thing with the Fairy token. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, I played against Uranus. Uranus is not an issue unless like they hit their pieces. Uranus is high roll, so if they high roll you, they high roll you. There's not a lot you can do. But if you survive the high roll initially and they don't have another Valkyrian, you can win it. You can also attack like the thing that gets a lot like beefy with multiple force markers. That's the grade 2. I don't know what it's called. I don't really care for Genesis, so I don't pay attention to it. Fang. I'm pretty sure Fang's also high roll. And then, as I said, Angel Feather just wins. Literally, Angel Feather just... Angel Feather's a really, really hard matchup because they can go Protect 2 and have a lot of shield for all your attacks. It's really annoying. I find Angel Feather quite hard. So, yeah. But anyways, this is the deck. I think it's really fun. It should be budget friendly. Like, it's... Like, this list specifically isn't because of just all the high rarities. Like, my deck isn't. But, like, Planos are going for, like, $4. So, like, they're pretty cheap. I think that's the same with Ravens. Blondes should be the most expensive because they're, like, the hardest ezel to find. But this deck should be pretty cheap to build. It's really fun to play. I enjoy it a lot. I'm going to be posting some gameplay on it. I'm going to record gameplay tomorrow, and I'm going to get that up for you guys so you guys can see the deck in action. So I'm really excited for that. And this is the deck, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if I missed anything about the deck. And if you guys have any questions in the comment section below, let me know. And if you just want to discuss anything or point out that I'm bad or something, again, please just let me know. I'd be happy to discuss with you. And I will see you guys in the next videos. Videos that will actually be like consistent now because I'm out of school, so super excited. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Suryo signing out, and have a great day, guys. Thank you.